took my child. He twisted her memories, her mind. Haven't seen her in over 3 years.
Most of this great wealth comes directly from teaching others how to have beautiful, healthy, loving, romantic relationships.
I thought that everything in my life was going good, but I was just missing my true love.
You too can have harmonious union.
I found people that I can relate to and I can trust.
We had 38,000 people in the group.
This is the story of falling in love.
They were saying things like, are you ready for the ultimate love of your life?
What Jeff and Shaleia do has nothing to do with love. It's control.
You're getting some prime ass tea. None of it matters because you're his twin flame and this is your union.
Jeff taught us to pursue our twin flames at all costs.
When I spoke up about how I was feeling, I got shunned by Jeff and Shaleia.
Liar!
Andrew's lying. Andrew's lying.
Liar. You're either feminine at your core or masculine at your core.
I questioned Jeff, and his reply was, how dare you question your God?
I guess
Stop talking, please.
Fine.
Let the man speak. The image of Christ was actually me, the second coming, not Jesus, the first coming.
It's insane what I ask of you, for you to have my divine light, and yet you get it, do you not?
How much power have I given to these people?
Dissolve the illusion and recognize that you're actually a man.
I felt like I didn't recognize myself.
We were forced to change so much about ourselves.
I just started crying because I felt like that was going to be our last conversation.
He already took my daughter. If anybody should be scared, it should be him.
I will never stop fighting for my sister to come home.
Man, the tea is now being spilled.
Hello, everybody. I know this is going to be a wonderful surprise for our audience because I think they enjoy this topic and enjoy my guests, Steve and Doug, just as much as I do. I am looking forward to this conversation. This is part 2 of our discussion of this new psychedelically wild, but yet kind of lazy, grifting internet cult called the TwinFlameUniverse. I'm joined with my friends Steve and Doug. Doug, of course, is from Dazed But Not Confused. I will have his channel links down in the description box below. And Steve will eventually be putting up his channel. And once he does, we will advertise that as well. And of course, you guys know Doug is kind of a cult expert, seeing that he grew up in a cult, the cult of science.
I'm not an expert. I'm just a guy that grew up in a cult. Please don't say that. No.
But you have insight and perspective.
Okay, I can deal with that.
Maybe Steve and I are not going to have from a bigger, I mean, I think we've all been in coercive controlled situations, but as far as like being in a big organization that's really dominating, more so than the church or anything else, you have that perspective of what some of these victims might be going through who are stuck inside of this group. But you guys, before we get into it, I just want to go ahead and remind you guys, in case you are new or you are just now tuning in and you're like, what are you guys talking about? Just going to go ahead and share their website. So this is based off of like an internet kind of business called TwinFlameUniverse with a couple named Shaleia. Shaleia is her spiritual name. Her real name is Megan, and Jeff. And there are now multiple, there's a Netflix documentary and there is an Amazon Prime multi-part documentary on what is going on in this cult, and there are podcasts, and as Steve found today, multiple Reddit. I don't do good at Reddit talk.
Reddit posts. That's all. That's how I know them.
Yeah. So yeah. I'm gonna let you guys. I'm gonna throw it to you guys because I think it's so great. I said this off camera, you guys. We have Steve and Doug, who are both heterosexual men. And we know that this cult has mainly attracted a lot of women. And I understand why that is as a female, but I think it's really kind of nice to hear 2 guys who are kind of rightly so pissed off that these two psychopaths, in my opinion, psychopaths, are really, really milking people who are heartbroken and vulnerable, you know, and anyway, so where do you guys want to jump off for part 2? Where do you want to start?
Steve, the expert, take it away, my man.
I'm only an expert on TV and the internet. No, but just going back to the Reddit, there were complaints about stuff that was in both documentaries going back 3 and 4 years. So this was stuff that was written up before I think even any documentary was thought of. So that, to me, that lends credence to a lot of the stuff that they were talking about it within those documentaries. One thing that I thought was messed up was I think she's brought up in both, but there's one individual that went to jail for stalking her twin flame. They interviewed that gentleman.
Yeah.
His story is terrifying. So the whole premise of it is that he's from England, came over to the States. I think he came over for work. He went to Burning Man, met this girl, typical boy meets girl story, yaka yaka. And he goes, listen, you're more of a homebody. I'm more social. This isn't going to work out. Best of luck to you in the future. Then she said she wasn't going to have it and goes full on stalker on this guy and is encouraged by Jeff and Shaleia and is leaving him notes, messages, emails, even meets up with a friend of his at the park, says, hey, I need to use your bathroom. He's like, no. She goes, no, I really need to go. Meanwhile, this guy, I can't remember if he was coming home from work or something. He comes in and he sees her backpack by the door. He immediately turns around, gets out.
Yeah. And
then that's when he files the emergency 5-day restraining order. And then there's a lapse of time. And then that's when we get to the story that's told in both documentaries of her meeting up with this gentleman in the club. He turns around and sees her because that wasn't their first club interaction either.
Oh, it wasn't.
It was an earlier one where she actually got right up in, he was talking to someone at the club and she walks up and slaps her drink out of her hand.
Wow.
So there was already a confrontation there. And it's just, so he called the cops when he saw her at the club and the last time, we'll call it. And even the police weren't taking him that seriously until they looked in the record, and this guy was smart and he was forwarding all of the messages and all the emails to the police. So there was already a file created for her. And then that led down that led to her going to jail. I think, what was it, Brice?
I mean, I want to stop there for a second because what you said is so important. I've been doing that myself with my stalker situation with the cult on Telegram. And every time there's a voice message left, anytime there's any messages left that are endangering to me, I send them straight to the detective in Sarasota who's working the case. And do not feel like you're bothering the police. Sometimes he responds, sometimes he doesn't, but I know it's going into a file as evidence. So what he did was smart. He created a paper trail. And I will agree, Steve, because in the documentary, it didn't make it made it sound like it was just like she was maybe being a little too, she was pursuing him a little bit too much. But no, in this podcast, the Wondery podcast, you hear the entire story. And so, but this is not just her. This is happening with like every person in this cult that has a bad breakup. They're brokenhearted. And so Jeff, who is claiming to be God, is telling them, but that's your twin flame. So you've got to be, the spiritual warrior and just go tell him to get in your bed and tell him. And you can see in a lot of these documentaries that some of the people in the beginning are really uncomfortable with this. Like they kind of they kind of push back a little bit. Like, there's that internal knowing of like a boundary. And so they definitely encourage this stalking behavior, which is, and I think when people are brokenhearted, they kind of get a little bit deranged and delusional anyway in their thought process. And so they become easily swayed and persuaded to do things that they typically wouldn't do. Does that make sense? Like if their emotions weren't heavily invested. So this is very scarily common that this could be almost considered like gang mentality in that, you know.
Well, it's that whole, okay, so this guy who I respect and look up to says I should do this, and then you get everyone else on there clapping like seals saying, yeah, go get him. That's your man. Go get him. And it's just, no, that's a recipe for disaster on everyone's part. I mean, she even left him a voicemail where it was, sorry, I forgot my notebook when I went to work this morning because I couldn't jot it down when I was listening to it. But she says to this gentleman, I would rather meet in private or go on a hike than go to a therapist who doesn't understand twin flames. Ladies and gentlemen, that's how you get shot and then buried in a shallow grave when you go hiking with these people. And it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because that's the problem, because you have this behavior being encouraged like that. I mean, you say no enough times, someone's going to snap because they have that complete clash, right? You have it where this one thing, I can't have it. Well, if I can't have it, no one can.
Yeah.
And it's just terrifying.
And Doug, are you familiar with the twin flame theory?
Yeah. I actually took it up with HG Tutor, and he's got videos on it about how it's kind of a new age way to kind of get people in that are looking for love in all the wrong places. You know, people that are vulnerable, right?
Right.
And another thing, Brice, there were so many parallels watching this with Scientology. You were just talking about the stalking aspect. There's an equivalent of that where, you know, they say go after your twin flame by any means necessary. That's the fair game tactic of Scientology, where if you leave the cult, you go after your critics by any means necessary, and if possible, ruin them utterly. It's such an evil, simple grift. I gotta say, if your audience hasn't watched it, it's one of the best cult documentaries I've ever seen. I thought it was going to be corny when I saw the trailer, because it's such a simple grift. He's obviously, they're preying on people that are vulnerable. And what's more vulnerable than breaking up with a loved one or having this experience where you can be electrified, usually by a narcissist, where you're love bombed and you feel like you had this connection, and then you're intrigued and you go on the internet and there it all starts. And it's amazing that such a simple grift. There's 3 episodes on the Netflix one, and each one is darker and darker. It's amazing how evil and how many layers that he takes this scam. I mean, it's even got an NXIVM aspect in it with the sex cult. You got the stalker aspect, and he changes people's gender. I mean, the level of mind fucking psychopathy that these two have created on a very simple, easy grift to do. You know, someone that's vulnerable looking for love I'm amazed it hasn't been shut down yet.
I met my twin flame, and it turned my entire world upside down.
We all understand this feeling of loneliness. We don't know where we belong, and we don't know how to rectify that.
I met someone, the one, my twin flame.
Twin flame. Twin flame.
Twin flame.
I was looking up twin flames, and Jeff and Shaleia came right up.
Hi, I'm Jeff.
And I'm Shaleia.
And we are authors of the book Twin Flames, Finding Your Ultimate Lover.
A twin flame is like a super spiritual soulmate.
Their promise was, you're going to end up in a relationship with your ultimate lover.
The classes were very expensive.
I started to notice weird things happening in the group.
They're surrounded by people who worship them.
I've had about enough of your disrespect of me.
It's getting pretty old.
They had so much power, it was very abusive.
Holy, holy, holy.
I've heard of many cases of people stalking their twin flame.
Show up every day at his house and drag him over to yours.
There's all this accusation that they pressure people into transitioning.
Coercing people to change their gender, would you say that you do that?
Absolutely and unequivocally not.
They would say, and you're the guy, and you're the girl, and that's your twin flame.
Got a message from God, and it's this person now.
I thought maybe this is a cult.
Jeff had a website. $30 to cure a headache, all the way up to curing cancer.
They're qualified to do none of this.
Could I be the Christ?
They were making serious money off of our trauma.
The level of obsession, people continue to join the organization.
I'm not evil.
It's a gimmick. It's a business. A business is manipulating people.
And it's working.
Unconditional love is at the root of everything that we do.
It's it's almost remarkable from a very scientific perspective, if you take your emotions out, what he has been able to do. And we talked about this last time, Steve, like, is it just him, or is Shaleia a victim, or is she a part of it? And in the Amazon documentary, you kind of see that Shaleia is also, I would say, if I had to guess, and this is just and I don't know these people, but if I had to guess, I would say that Jeff is more of a malignant narcissist, whereas Shaleia is more of a covert narcissist. And the thing about narcissists is they can coexist together. They can absolutely coexist together. And it's, as we're talking about the stalking, and I'm listening to you guys, and I'm watching, looking at two men. What would happen if the tables were turned and it was a man that Jeff was telling this guy to go get his woman that had broken up with him?
That's a good question. What would you say, Steve?
It wouldn't have gotten it nearly as far, I think.
No.
Yeah, I agree.
In jail and everything taken away. Maybe not everything, but it would have, the law would have come down a whole lot harder.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Going back really quick, Doug, to what you were talking about, it's such a simple grift.
Yeah.
But the thing is that it is layered. And that's
exactly.
It's a lot of simple stuff, but it's layered because you have the heartache. That's the hook that gets you in, right?
Exactly.
And then I can't remember the term, but it's that whole, you have to sell, you have put so much time, effort, and resource into this one thing that even if it's terrible and you know it, you will not give it up because you have put your heart into it.
Sunk cost fallacy.
That's it. Thank you. And you look at the prices, and it's over $2,000 for the classes.
Yeah, super expensive.
Supplement materials. So now you have that heartache hook, and now you have that where it says, well, I've put all this time and effort into it. I'm getting because now let's look into the social media aspect of it, right? Because you have that little private group. It's the echo chamber.
Yeah.
And there are studies out there that say that the same kick or high that you get from getting a like on Facebook is equivalent to cocaine or heroin. I can't remember. Can I say that on YouTube? I'm sorry if I can't, Brice.
If I can, I'll edit it forward. It's no big deal.
But it's an equivalent high. So now you have that, heartache, I'm invested. And now I'm getting all of this positive information from all these complete strangers that have my story. And this is my only source of cope. It's my only source of dopamine, because my original source of dopamine took off and left.
Right.
It's just, it's all simple, but it's layered.
Yeah. And it's dark. Yeah. And it's so crazy, Brice. Like, I was watching this thing, and it looks so obvious, like a con, like they're laughing. Jeff's crazy that, sometimes he's abusing his wife on camera, and you can see her even kind of say, whoa. And it all looks like it shouldn't work, but he's got those people such under a spell. He's got this hypnotic stare, these blue eyes, and kind of a unique, I've never seen a cult like this. It's so fascinating, like you said, to study as to how deep you can take people on a simple hook. Cause he's an evil, evil fuck. I mean, how dark it gets.
It's that narcissism,
gender
isn't
and
it?
such.
It's
Totally.
like narcissists don't have
Psychopathy,
shame.
maybe.
I think that it has a lot to do, like we always say, there's that saying that the fish stinks from the head down, right? When the person in charge is a narcissist or an egomaniac, it's going to trickle down. It's going to cause a lot of, a cause and effect karma for that. But when the head person is actually taking healthy boundaries with their clients, with their students, whatever it is, then it becomes a healthy organization where there's no coercive control. I hope that's clear. That makes sense. Like how you can kind of see these differences, or people who could potentially do what Jeff and Shaleia are doing, recognize that, and therefore pull back and put boundaries on themselves so that they don't do that to other people. And they don't have people relying on them in that way. Because in reality, I would say to anybody who's in a religious type of cult, which I would consider the TwinFlameUniverse to be that, they have made themselves a church after all. The teacher's job is to eventually not be needed. So if you're in a situation where you feel like you need that person, then you have to ask yourself why. Because a teacher's job is to eventually not be needed. A teacher's job is to teach themselves out of a job.
And that's the exact opposite what a narcissist like Jeff and Shaleia would do. They want to trauma bond you so that you can't leave, because there goes their source of income and their scam. And also, Jeff is the typical con artist that ends up becoming a cult leader, looking for money the easiest way since he was the kid, looking for grifts, just looking for the easiest way out. And they always have a shady background. It seems like these Keith Raniere's and Hubbards, they start off as little kind of con artists, scam people from the beginning, like used car salesmen. And they have the psychopathy to then, and then charm, like Jeff. He does have a certain psychopathic charisma. Some of these people, I think, can be energetically magnetic, for lack of a better phrase, and draw people to them to make them look powerful when they're actually that psychopathy that's bonding to you. And it can feel unusual if you're not used to being around psychopaths that love bomb you and like that. So it can be an ecstatic experience where you might put them on a pedestal, which is exactly what Jeff literally is trying to do, because he says he's Jesus.
Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, that affirmation on Facebook goes both ways, because you have it to where, one person says it, their friends will back them up. But then can you imagine what Jeff and Shaleia get?
Yeah.
They probably get half or whatever, a huge chunk of just that narcissistic hit just has to come from there. And all they need to pull out their phone and 5 minutes, I get a hit. Give it 30 minutes and another hit. I'll do another post.
Yeah.
And it's just insane. It's just its own just terrible ecosystem.
Exactly.
And it just keeps going and going. And it's until someone sits there and goes, no, I'm done with this. And they leave. And that's the scariest part of all of this, is that every one of their victims has that ability to go, I'm done. And then say, you know what? I cast all my old friends out. I cast all my family out. I'm going to go and apologize and just try to reconnect as best I can, because this is ridiculous. And that is just that. And that's the evil brilliance behind all of this. And you hear them in, like we were talking before we started, there's the body cam. There was either body cam or phone call. I'm almost positive it was
phone call. Oh, was it?
And it was just the audio, where he's saying to the police officer, because they're getting calls out there saying, listen, this is a cult. And the guy goes, no, the guy meaning Jeff, no, they can leave whenever they want. They can leave whenever they want, blah, blah, blah. But he took away their links to their family, links to their friends, entire support network, gone. Work outside of the Twin Flames universe, gone. Money, gone. And so they're going out there, jumping off the sinking Titanic with nothing. And that's what's holding everyone in. And if anyone that's brave enough to go, you know what, despite all of that, I'm out of here, they can do it.
Yeah.
And that is just the most terrifying thing in looking at this, is just every one of those people are able to leave. All they got to do is just unfollow, unfriend, done.
And
but the trauma and pain that comes with that, man, you remember episode 3? I was crying like a baby, man, towards the end, because they had to get back together because they were traumatized amongst each other, because they were both abused and encouraged to and demanded to abuse others. So some of the people that all left right around the same time, they were all fucked up amongst each other. And I remember 2 of the gals getting together, and it was just heartbreaking, the pain that Jeff and Shaleia caused these people. And like you said, my man, they can leave anytime they want. It is just a mental prison, but it's been built up around, phobia indoctrination. They're disconnected from their family. Some of these people have had their freaking gender changed. Yeah. There's so much that they are going to have to walk back, that the trauma watching these people was just heartbreaking. He really, really took some of these people. He took their dignity and pride and their whole being away, and to get that back coming out of the cult, it was I swear it's like one of the best documentaries I've ever seen, breaking down what the experience feels like and what it's like and how deep it can go, and then how psychologically how simple it is, actually, because it's a simple, but like you said, my man, a layered, multi-layered grift.
And I didn't mean to make it sound like it would be easy. Oh no, I'm out, I'm done, and then you got to go back.
No. But you're right, they can leave.
A lot to unfuck when you leave. But all it is that first step out the door.
Yeah, exactly.
First step turns into 2, and then 3, and then you run the hell down the road and get out.
Exactly. And it was so amazing, wasn't it? Like Steve, I was like cheering him on, like come on, you can do it, get out, because you could it's like watching a horror movie going, no, don't turn that corner, and they just keep going and going and going along with Jeff. And then finally they hit their breaking point, and it was different for each people. And some of them, it was real quick. And then they blocked everybody on Facebook, first Jeff and Shaleia, and they leave, and you're just cheering them on. I got to tell you, Brice, like, we were talking about, is there some parallel between true crime and cults and all this? Like, I'm always wondering, because I lived it. So I'm always wondering, what do you guys think? Because I can't, sometimes it's hard to see your own experience. This allowed me to really, because I'm not in that cult, it really allowed me to understand my own experience and what you guys might see, or others that maybe haven't been in a cult. Oh, because it's all the same. Like, I was relating to this on such a level where it was just like being in Scientology,
and I
everything
will say,
about it.
As someone who's never been in, like, I've been in a cult of one. I've been in narcissistic relationships, but I've never been sucked into like a big organization that was high control. The closest thing for me was the Presbyterian Church. I've been very lucky. I mean, I was at a school, I would consider the school I went to be a narcissistic system, but that's different from like a cult. And you graduate and you leave, so they have to let you go, right? So but I would say too, that's a good point you're making, Doug. And I can't speak for Steve or anybody else watching that's never been in like an official cult. I would say for anybody watching that is in a cult right now and is embarrassed and feeling ashamed, and that's what's keeping them in the cult because they don't want to leave to face that judgment. I know that there are some assholes out there that will shame you for this situation, but I think most people, and I think I can speak for you, Steve, saying this, see you as a victim, and we have empathy and compassion for you, and we want to come and get you, and we want you to be okay. And I think, watching these people in the Twin Flame docuseries, or people in Scientology or NXIVM or whatever it is, with Jehovah's Witnesses, we want to like wrap our arms around you and tell you that there's a life outside of this that you deserve that is so much better than what you don't deserve the treatment that you're getting. And I think most people, I can't say all people, but I think most people who aren't in cults, at least that's how I feel about people I see in a cult, is I want to just shake them and be like, you deserve so much better than this. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So don't be ashamed. Don't be embarrassed. Don't feel like you're going to get judged, because most people are going to have compassion and are going to want you to live a better life than you're living as one human being to another,
Well, and especially the more that this stuff comes out, right? You have documentaries where people can have that detached view of what's going on, but know exactly what's going on and go, holy hell, what is going on here? Because let's face it, it's not stuff that's really talked about all that much in mainstream society. And all you hear is cult. And, what do you think? You think of, someone in a robe and saying a bunch of...
Right?
Yeah.
Jamestown, yeah. Jonestown. Yeah.
What you think? Not some dipshit on Facebook.
Yeah, exactly.
Facebook and YouTube, like, that's out of freaking left field.
Yeah. It's everywhere. I'm sure Steve. That's the new reign for cults. He even said that in the documentary, that the internet was the new springboard for cults.
It's the wild, wild west of and I said this too when I was working both with the police and with the journalist from CNN. I said, you have to think about it this way. When we look at like the old school cult leaders, like L. Ron Hubbard, like David Koresh, like all these big agnatic characters that have led these, being that cult leader for them was like a full-time job, because there was no internet. So they had to be in this charismatic character for all their followers 24/7. For these internet cult leaders, though, it's even more potent, because they can go on, and we talk about the parasocial relationship with the internet all the time and with YouTube all the time. And so when you're watching someone on YouTube, and I'm sure, I know Steve, you'll experience this. I know Doug, you and I have experienced this, having channels and platforms, people develop an opinion of you and project a characteristic to you that might not necessarily be true. But if you're a cult leader, that works in your favor. because you can be charismatic for a 30-minute video, create this like identity of who you are, and there's some distance. And so people get this idea of you being almost godlike, and then you can go away for a little while, recharge, so it's almost like it's even scarier, because at least with L. Ron Hubbard and like David Koresh, they had to go 24/7 in this with this, at least they were like really laboring to get their followers.
The cult leaders in the past definitely had to hustle a lot harder than today's internet cult leaders have. They have it. These kids have it so easy nowadays, don't they?
Or Hubbard, right?
If L. Ron Hubbard was alive, he'd be like, "You kids today, you'll never know."
He also didn't see the internet coming. That was Scientology's Achilles heel, and he would just be like, "Oh my God, it would be so much easier. It was so hard to do." He'd be envious of what we had today.
And let's just look as far as an implementation standpoint, and how in as far as coercion goes. So, Doug, I'm going to have to rely on you here for a little bit of this, but say this is before YouTube and all of that, you would have to go to like a Scientologist church. So that indoctrination process had to have been much slower. You'd have it from your parents or siblings, but the actual being there with the, what you call them, priests? I don't know. The dude in front.
Okay.
Is it the Commodore? Is that we call him the Commodore in Scientology?
That's only if you meet Hubbard and shit. I mean, he was the Commodore.
The Commodore.
Nobody got to meet him.
The little people under him, the Commodorettes.
Well, if you went into like a local org, well, I'll give you an example. Like there's this First Amendment auditor on YouTube who's always going out to their testing center here in Hollywood, California, and saving people from being roped in. It says Scientology, but they have the lights turned off, and they have these people in these happy steak uniforms, basically, real slick, standing outside trying to rope people in with the personality test. That's what they do, Steve. They would just, you're right. Yes, they bring it in slowly. And what they do is they get out here on Hollywood Boulevard, there's a lot of foreigners and tourists, people that don't even speak English. And you can just watch every day this auditor film people of people being roped in there. And they come out 2 hours later. And what they do is a 200-question personality test, which is designed to get inside your mind, and it asks you very vague questions, and you answer yes, no, and maybe. So that takes at least an hour to do. It's designed to throw you off, and then they use that personality test to take you into a room and find your ruin. They try to find your vulnerability. What they ask you, Steve, is what's the one thing that's ruining your life? If you could just fix this one thing, and your life would be so much better. What is that? That's what they try to pin in on. So that's an example of what Jeff and Shaleia do with the vulnerability of looking for love in all the wrong places, right? So they just are cult 101. They distract and confuse your mind for an hour with the personality test. They do a kind of throwing the bones type fortune telling where they use this graph to try to hit on your ruin, and eventually they're going to get it. And then you, like I and my dad and my mom did, because we went through this process, open up, feel cathartic, and then they look right in your eyes and they say, Scientology can handle that. For $50, you can get started. So let's go ahead and get you on this communication course. That's a rough rundown of how it goes, Steve.
Okay. But what I was getting at was eventually you walk out and leave.
Yes, correct.
Into the normal world.
Yep.
You start going back to the materials, and then you go back to the church, and right, but there's a coming and going.
Exactly.
And slow inching in.
Yep.
Stuff like Jeff and Shaleia. This is, if they have
hardcore,
you sit down, you're in for 3 hours. By the end, you come back from a bad date at 10 o'clock at night. By 3 a.m., you're giving them your credit card number for that $2,200 course.
Right.
Twin Flame Ascension School. Click to learn more.
Have done. So if somebody goes on a date and they're feeling a huge romantic attraction to this person, or they really are intrigued by this person, and then the person's like, you know what, I'm not interested. It doesn't mean that they're your twin. So they've taken this and they've said, this feeling that you're having is because that person is your same soul. So that's the ruin. So to justify, this pain that they're feeling, this push-pull reaction the other person is having, is now logical and justified in their mind as, oh, it's because we're the same. It's not because maybe this guy is not interested. And I want to say something too, because I had a therapist say this to me when I was going through my trauma therapy, and it really changed my perspective on things. Sometimes we mistake toxic relationships for passionate ones. Healthy relationships are meh. Like my relationship is meh. And I don't mind saying that. I don't think he minds me saying that because it's calm. We don't fight that much. We don't scream and yell. We're very compatible. We respect each other. There's no drama. I'm not sitting there screaming to see his cell phone, wondering if he's cheating on me. Like none of that exists because we're too healthy. We're two people who work on ourselves, and we're not. And when my therapist said that to me, that I was confusing toxicity with passion, I was like, oh, ding dong. I got it. So that's what Shaleia and Jeff are playing with. They're saying, oh, this toxicity, which is what we're really talking about, is toxicity, is actually good. It's passion. Fight for it. Be in that romantic novel. It's a rom-com, and so that's the ruin, I would assume. Like this is, and so it starts to manipulate your mind. And after that, you're hooked. You're hooked. They got you, don't they?
Well said. Exactly.
And we
it's
know
so simple, isn't it?
It's so simple. It's so simple, and it's I know the twin flame thing has become, and I said this in our last video because I do on Tuesdays, Doug, I've been reading through a lot of different channeled work and talking about it and looking at it. And this has come up a lot, and I've spoken on it because I do know what this, I've studied Plato's Symposium. I do know exactly where this comes from. And I want to just say, like, right now, and I hope, Steve, I hope that I've made it clear in the past, like, this is a very rare thing that happens. Jeff and Shaleia are selling this, that everybody has one. No, they don't. They don't. And that's okay. Like, you're not more special if you have one or not, that, and that's an us versus them, isn't it? Like to think, oh, well, I'm on a twin flame journey and you lowly person are not. So you would never.
Yeah. It's a way to be special and elitist, which is what a cult will sell you too. It feels great to feel like you have the special answers. That's why religion and everything sells, because you have the answers and others don't.
Exactly.
But there's also the mission. Like you two unite, harmonious union, then you go on your mission. What the fuck is this, Batman?
I know. We're just dating and trying to get to know somebody. I mean, that's another thing, right? They take it so damn seriously and it becomes all encompassing. Their life is about meeting this mate. It's like, why don't you just go about your life and your job and have it happen organically? It's so obsessive and all encompassing. It's crazy to actually watch these people. You just want to say, get out of this and relax. Love will come to you, you don't take it so damn seriously. But like Brice said, that's how they hook you in. Once they got that hook, it's all downhill from there.
And why would you want to be with somebody that ran from you and was filing restraining orders on you? Why would you? Like, that's.
Oh, they just don't know it yet. They love me.
Yeah, it's just how you explained it, Brice. That's why, because you're told, and not least the movies and the programming we get, go after your love. He's resisting. He's playing a game. I mean, that poor gal, like you said, spent a month in prison because of a restraining order on. I mean, this guy was terrorized. And by the way, you know what that documentary made me think of? Have I ever run across a girl because you don't know what's inside somebody's head. So if they have these affirmations, or and there's some little cult out here in Los Angeles, and they think that I'm there, in their head, they had this whole fantasy, and I don't even know who they are. I wonder, have you guys ever wondered, watching that, if you ever ran across somebody that was projecting that onto you? That's terrorizing. And I was kind of doing that, Brice, in Scientology. It's a whole mind over matter thing. And I had some pretty twisted ideas about projecting my universe, so to speak, onto them. If they only knew what I was thinking, it was it was really crazy thinking. That's embarrassing and scary.
We see that with the Christian church.
Yeah.
You must believe in my Jesus. And even within the different denominations, my Jesus is better than your Jesus. Don't believe the Methodists, believe the Episcopalians, and so it gets even within the same belief system, generally speaking, it gets even insidious, where it's like, no. But that slight alteration in belief is what's going to damn people to hell. And, and I'm going to go knock on your door and I'm going to harass you until you actually accept my belief system. And well, that's the thing too. So how it starts is when you first get on, you're working with Jeff and Shaleia for this outside guy that's not in the group that you're pursuing. But what was happening is people were not getting the guy, they weren't achieving
That's
that
right.
relationship. And so they had to start saying, oh, well, we spoke to God, we channeled God, because, you know, I'm Jesus. And it turns out, oops, that wasn't your twin flame. But you know who is your twin flame? Joe Schmo over here. He's your twin flame. And that one girl, what was her name? Marley or something, or the young one? Well, I can't remember her name. Where she
I think it was Marley. Oh my God, that poor girl.
You got so brutalized. You could just tell she was being tormented. She was with some, and then at the end, she says, "Wow, I was just with some random guy the whole time," and she was miserable. She had to keep it the facade the hardest, and you could tell she was hurting the most. And she was so innocent and naive, and just felt for Marley, man.
Well,
he was the perfect victim for that cult, man.
Yeah, I mean, you watch her in the documentaries. They show it live where, oh, right, everyone prays for a twin flame from Marley.
Yeah, they do like a ceremony, some voodoo witch ceremony to call in Marley's, and then some random creeper comes into the Twin Flames group, sends her a song, and then she's pulled in front of the whole group to say that must be the twin flame, and then she moves across country to be with this guy, and he's like 10 or 12 years older than her, and he was just arrested, and she's just, it was all crazy, bro.
This rap sheet was a mile long.
I know.
Thing is, you look at her and it's just, you can just see that those were not tears of joy.
No, she burst into tears. She was like, oh shit, this guy was harassing her on Facebook, and oh, that must be your
exactly. He was a stalker.
Yeah.
That environment that they're creating is wide open to bring in people like that to pray.
Predators.
I wish I could find it, but there was even a post on Reddit of this I think it was a young lady that she went to the bar, locked eyes with this guy, comes home, goes out to get like a snack at a gas station, you know, like chips and whatever, comes back and there's pounding on the door. And it was this guy looking for her. And he went all to every single door in her apartment floor. And then she even had in the post, oh, I wonder if he was my twin flame. Maybe I should have let him in. And it's like, this guy is ready to serve you the eviction notice to your meat suit. Do you really want to mess with it?
Yeah. You could draw on
door at 3 a.m. And you think it's your twin flame. That is the other.
Love. Steve, it must be love.
It's gotta be love because he good people. He loves me. Are you kidding me?
It almost reframes toxic, narcissistic relationships as something positive, and it attracts it and creates it, and it's a whole system where everybody gets sucked into this vortex.
Well, it's that all exercise, right? Take everything and flip it.
Yeah, that's a brilliant manipulation tool.
Yeah,
just brilliant to keep people in the trap.
Properly, though, you know, because at Brice, I think even you talked. We were talking about in the episode that I was in, where when implemented correctly with a trained professional with the proper boundaries, the mirror exercise can be an effective treatment.
Yes.
However,
yeah.
When you screw around with it, it can lead very quickly to cult mindsets.
Absolutely. And victimization, and that it's always your fault. And I'm sitting here thinking, guys, what was that movie where John Cusack holds the boombox up for the girl he loves?
Say anything.
Okay, so is that what people think is happening? Because somebody holding a boombox up, singing a love song to you is very, very different than someone aggressively knocking on every single door at 3 o'clock in the morning looking for you. That's very
and he got to know her for a while too before he held the boombox up. They had a relationship that was toward the end of the movie, right?
Right.
At least they knew each other.
Violently interrupting her. There was no violence there. And I know with the Marley situation, and apparently this guy had bipolar. There was something going on with him mentally. And anytime he had an episode, it became Marley's fault because she wasn't fulfilling.
Yes. And she had to do the mirror exercise on her. He had like schizophrenic episodes. And then she wasn't, if she could just, it was all based on doing the inner work. This is exactly what Scientology is about, Brice. And a lot of these new age cults. If you do the inner work, your outer life will reflect it. And again, there's some truth to that, right? But then they flip it, where, like you said, it's a fine line between getting triggered in life, pulling it into yourself, and seeing how you could do self work, so to speak, versus being in a narcissistic relationship and taking everything onto you and believing it's your fault and doing the mirror exercise on yourself when you're actually in an abusive relationship and you need to get the fuck out of there. But once that hook is set, like you described in the beginning of this broadcast, everything else follows for you to hang in there and not see all the warning signs, and you just go more and more aggressive until finally you hit your breaking point and hopefully get out of the cult.
Josh, he had schizoaffective disorder. Basically, that's like bipolar disorder mixed with schizophrenia. He was not getting the support he needed, and he wasn't actively trying to like get better. So that was hard. So I asked Jeff and Shaleia about like, you know, mental illness and like how to heal that, because obviously nothing I did was working.
As far as his mental disorder, if Josh had a really high, happy, supportive, loving environment that was consistent, he could actually work through this.
I felt like deep shame about everything that was happening because I thought it was like a problem with me.
This is the price. We don't get to set the price. We don't get to pick the person. God sets the price. God created the person. You need to accept that this is what you have to work with.
Yeah. My first MAPS session was to heal one of the traumas I experienced with Josh. And that's one instance where he was sent to jail after like chasing me down. It was just like survival. The most traumatic time in my life. It's very hard for me to talk about.
And let's make that clear to people watching, like with inner work, yeah, it'll change your perspective on the outside world, but it's not going to change other people, right? Every single human being has a free will choice. And if you're with somebody that's toxic and abusing you, no matter what inner work you do, it's not going to shift them. It's not magic. It's not a magic spell. It is your own work. And hopefully, if you're doing the proper inner work, you will value yourself enough to realize that nothing you do is going to fix that person. They have to fix themselves. And so you will value yourself to understand that you don't deserve that, and you will remove yourself from that situation. So I just want to make that clear for anybody watching, because there are a lot of hokey. I fear that Jeff and Shaleia are not the only ones out there that are building really kooky cults off of this stuff, and they're taking very important, potent exercises and really just cranking them to a place they don't need to be. Like we said in the last episode, the mirror exercise. Yeah, okay, so if I'm triggered because my boyfriend leaves the dishes in the sink and doesn't wash them, which isn't true. He actually does all the dishes in our house. But let's just say
be honest.
Let's just say that's one of the things that triggers me. Right? That's not a reflection on his moral character. The dishes. That's not a reflection on how he treats me. There's nothing violent in that, right? That's not abuse. It's not, I can say, okay, why am I triggered by this? Where is this coming from? And then it's a safe thing. But if my boyfriend's smacking me around and calling me a whore and cheating on me, then this is not appropriate to do the mirror exercise. To make that person who already feels like there's something wrong with them feel even more bad about themselves.
It's like turning in what a narcissist does naturally into a philosophy to make a lot of money off of.
There you go. Yep.
It's just and it's once you're hooked, like you said, Brice, I feel like you're going to have to hit your breaking point because you're not going to see it, because all abusive behavior is reframed as something positive. It's so 100%. Sick what those two did.
It's almost something I've heard you, Doug, say that in our Scientology makes you kind of like pseudo narcissist, like the eight of them.
Secondary sociopaths.
That's it. Secondary sociopaths. I feel like with the twin flame, they make them even more empathic because they're taking everything on as their fault and they're trying to. Right. So
that's what we do in Scientology too. In fact, Brice, they even have a thing called the suppressed person rundown, which is one of 1,000 auditing actions that you can do on their little e-meter. And I remember having a girlfriend at the time, and this auditing action promised to change the disposition of the antagonistic person in your life. It's all magical thinking. It's all about, if I don't need to go out and work and lift the weights. You can actually take off weight by mind over matter, by getting rid of engrams in Scientology. I don't need to do whatever I need to do to attract a relationship, or if I have a problem with someone. This is what I'm saying. We never handled family problems. I never handled anything in the real world. I would just go into an auditing session and get that antagonistic person to change their demeanor. Of course, that doesn't work, but the synchronicity of aligning with the brainwashed ideas allows you to reframe your reality where insignificant things become significant. You connect your reality to the ideas that you have. So my life was just normal, but it would look synchronistic by the way I was thinking. Does that make any sense, Brice? Like, if there was like, for example, when I did that exercise, I had a girlfriend at the time where we weren't talking for a while. And I attested to finishing that, because you have to have an origination before you can actually complete this. And you just run process after process after process, day after day after day, until it says, I could even show you it. It's crazy. It's like magical thinking 101. This process is not done. And you keep auditing until the antagonistic person reaches out to that person. They could be miles away. It doesn't matter. That person has to reach out. They have to be friendly, etc. So what happened is, a girlfriend that I had reached out to me after not talking for a couple of months. And I said, there it is. And I originated it to my auditor and I explained it. Now, it's not because I was doing some auditing process. I'm just saying that's just something that happened in life. I attributed it to, oh, that must relate to this process that I'm doing. So, and then we ended up getting back together for a while. And my girlfriend, meanwhile, has no idea the funky mind voodoo shit that I'm thinking about, what caused her to come back into my life. She's just like, hey, you want to hang out? And I'm like, the significance of it. And I paid thousands of dollars for the process.
You're like,
Brice, it's crazy, man. It's so good not to have to think or do any of this shit anymore. But once I was hooked and locked in, it's a magical thinking land where you don't really have to, it removes you from life completely. And you get addicted more and more and more, because it doesn't work, Brice. So you try harder, and it's the next auditing action. And but the suppressed person rundown worked. I got my girlfriend back. So it's just this mind fuck of magical thinking where if you just, I finally was like trying to mind over matter acting jobs. And then it hit me where I finally got high enough on their bridge where I'm like, why don't I just promote myself more? Why don't I try in the physical world to actually do actions that will bring this forward? And I got my first major job shortly after that. And I never actually went back to Scientology from that point forward, really. But I was spending so much time trying to get up to the confidential levels. The next level is going to work. Well, I have had some wins. I've connected in my life where I just needed to get the fuck out of there and do normal shit. But I was so trained in that magical thinking where that's where it's at. If I can't manifest it, physicality and doing that stuff is beneath me. It has to be done mind over matter, because that's what they drill into. It's all so silly, but it's unbelievably dangerous.
I mean, I get it. It's like chasing the dragon, right? It's like when people do that first hit of a drug and they're really high.
Right.
Never get the same highs. They're constantly chasing that. And, you know, and it's, just picture Doug going home, be like, I'm a warlock. I mean,
basically,
you know, it's
in my mind, man. Yeah,
this is the world's mind. You know, but
it's so crazy.
They're turning, like the girl who got arrested. Like when she got out of jail, what did he say? Something like, I now trust you completely because you're just like a spiritual warrior. And so this horrific experience.
Yeah.
That if she wasn't in this cult, she probably would not have stalked this guy, right?
No. Because she had her thinking reframed, where everything was reframed, and she couldn't make her way out of that mind trap.
But here's the thing.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Steve.
I'm sorry, Brice. No, Doug, kind of to prove your point, this individual was in jail 30 days. Posted, I think her bond was $150,000.
And her parents had to like give up their retirement or something to pay it, right?
That I can't remember. But even 30 days, $150K. What does she do? Right back to Jeff and Shaleia.
Exactly. And they re-abused her. You know?
Shit. Just how strong that. Because you'd think after 30 days of just sitting there alone, I don't know if you're alone in a cell.
She was doing the mirror exercise in the freaking cell.
That's just it. It's that you just plant that seed and it takes.
Exactly. You
That's
got
the
it.
prison
Man.
of belief. You're
That's
in
what I'm
literal
learning while we're
prison.
talking. Exactly. You just plant that seed and bam, it takes care of itself.
I don't want to say normal human being, but I'm sorry. If I found myself in jail for 30 days having to shell out $150K, my first thought would be, this shit, I'm out.
But you wouldn't if you had had a lot of brainwashing like her, had your reality reframed, and are trying to use the only tools you know, the mirror exercise, to get yourself out of this situation, because her critical thinking had long been shut down.
Yep.
It's crazy.
And even Keely, Marley's sister, mentioned that, where when she reunited with Angie, and she goes, I can't even believe, she goes, it's taking me forever to start thinking for myself again.
Yeah, and it
so
really
it's just
does.
like, I don't
I can
remember
attest to
when
that.
the last time is I made a decision for myself, and even her marriage was like falling apart.
Yeah.
You know, and she was living in like a trailer in something that looked like she lost everything to this cult. And I applaud her for speaking out. And you know, it's and for we did see in a lot of situations that the people, there was that one girl, and I can't remember if it was a Netflix documentary or the Amazon. Have you seen the Amazon one, Doug? The Amazon Prime one?
Yeah, I've seen both of them.
Where she basically, when he told the girl that she was actually a guy, she's like, no. And she
That
kept
was the
pushing
Netflix.
back.
Oh, are you talking about when she was talking to her mom? When she went
No,
when she finally went to her mom? Okay.
I forgot. She had long, thick hair, and that's when he started changing people's gender. And he was like, "You are actually the divine masculine." And she's like, "No, I'm not." And she just kept saying no. And he was like using the he/him pronouns. She was like, "No, I'm a she. I'm a female."
Right. She
And I
resisted that
liked
part.
her sassy ass. She was like, "No,
Me too.
I'm
Yeah.
a female." So for some people, that was a breaking point. For
Some people have
like,
that's the thing. You bring up a great point, Brice, because you never know where someone's line is going to be.
Yeah.
Because certain people have different values. They can't take necessarily everything away from you. What kept me away from signing the billion-year contract and being part of the elite, like, you know, Aaron and Mike Rinder and stuff in Scientology, is that I needed to be an actor. So that was something they couldn't take away from me.
Right.
For Marty Rathbun, which is one of the top defectors of Scientology, who kind of went back to the cult. It's a long story. His breaking point was when he got thrown in the hole, the prison. He's like, he got imprisoned by the leader with all the top executives, and that was his breaking point. So people sometimes do have a selective thing where you're like, nope, I'll buy everything else, but you're not taking that.
If a teacher gives themselves the name guru, run. Do not stick around. That's bad news. Like what was Keith Raniere's name? Vanguard.
Yeah, that doesn't do it for you, Brice. That doesn't.
Listen, I joked about this, and I don't mean to be insensitive.
Vanguard.
I have told my friend Kelly this as well, and she kind of laughed. I was like, that Keith Raniere, man, he had to form a cult just to get girls. Because
He
otherwise,
freaking did, though. You're right about that. There's no way
so
that
gross.
dude's getting laid without it. No way.
like just so gross. I'm like,
Disgusting.
I had to form a cult to get girls because
Totally. And a lot of men do that just for that very reason.
yeah, if somebody's telling you to come to volleyball at 10 o'clock at night,
yeah,
and he's sweating, he's got a headband, and that guy looks like a predator.
yeah,
He looks
absolutely.
like a predator.
Like when I was watching Seduced, and my friend Kelly was in the documentary Seduced, when I was watching that and listening to them explain this, I was like, ugh. Like I just was like, as a woman, I was like, ugh. Like that would be like my breaking point. I'd be like, get the fuck off. Ugh. Like this is so gross. I just can't. Like this is so disgusting. Like I can't imagine that body. I hate to be grabbing, but like that body on top of me, I'd just be like,
oh my God, I can't get that. I can't get that out of my head. That is so disgusting. Right? I mean, he got laid a lot, and it's like as soon as that dude's body would go over the female, if I was a female, exactly, Brice, I'd be like, I'm out. Where's the door?
The sweatiness
That's it.
of him. I just can't. Like,
God.
Oh, good God. It's moist. Stop
Too much. I think he just caused all the viewers to tune out, man. We had him for an hour here, Brice, and they're all tuned out now,
beautiful
man.
little girl in India. She was so young, and I saw there was a scene in Seduced where my friend Kelly, who's been on my channel a lot, is talking to India, and they get emotional, and she was like, I saw, because Kelly's older, and she was like, you're my children's age. I can't remember what she said, but she got emotional. She's like, I saw you losing weight, and I should have said something. I should have gone to your, But that's like you said, Doug, in the Netflix documentary at the end when the ex-survivors are talking and they're having those moments of realization together, and that like forgiving each other for the way that they behaved. The cult of consciousness. She has a T-shirt that says "Sorry for the way I behaved when I was in a cult," you know,
That's
or something.
great.
Like it's not really you, and so and you have to. I think that's part of the healing process, isn't it, Doug? To come to terms with the things that you did when you were under that hypnotic control.
That's the worst part, Brice. It's not that you now have to undo this trauma. I couldn't think for myself. That's why I could relate to this documentary so much. I mean, it really does a number on your. I didn't know what my favorite color was, as we talked about. I didn't know what my likes were, dislikes were. It really takes a while to get your own thinking back. I had to stop thinking in terms of, because I had so many words programmed into me that mean nothing in the outside world. So not only do you not handle the problems that you had before you went into the cult, you have all the problems that go with the cult. And then it could take years. Sometimes I don't even think in a lifetime, if you've done what some of these top executives have done, to actually make up the damage and make right. That's another thing. You if you have a heart, you do feel compelled to make up a lot of the damage that you did to people. And it's just horrible. You have so many problems all at the same time. And then you don't have a mind, because it was taken away from you, to freaking work with.
So I was watching someone, I can't remember the channel, but earlier today, claims to be inside of the Facebook group and is reading.
Oh, I saw that video today. I was just watching that.
And they're saying they're basically going with, there's dancing around everyone's questions. And if anyone says, but you didn't answer my question, they're booted from the group.
Right.
They are in major damage control right now.
I bet they are.
So if you want in, I'm sure there's going to be a sale going on because they got to make up for, they got to get those numbers up. So
You gotta
here's
pay that mortgage, baby, on that million whatever dollar property they own. They got to.
Ferrari ain't going to pay for itself.
No,
I mean,
No.
shit.
Is there? Holy
Chanel, Chanel's not gonna buy itself, you know?
Now, are they the most materialistic people and they don't even hide it, Brice?
No,
I mean, they don't realize that's the opposite of what a real quote guru would be doing. Like, dude, calm down a little on showing off the Chanel and talking about your Ferrari and this shit. It's that's what I'm saying. I feel like he's laughing at these people. Like he's got the narcissist. He must be getting off on how transparent he actually is, but he's got something where they can't see through it. You know, I do understand that, by the way.
And I have a feeling that this is gonna, I mean, unlike Nexium, they have declared themselves to be a church, which
Can you believe that they actually,
yeah,
it's so easy to do in the US. Anybody can do it.
And that was just for the tax break, if I remember correctly.
Yep. And it's also going to protect them because that's what Scientology is up again.
Yeah. And by the way, remember at the end of the documentary, one of the gals actually left because they were getting cult accusations. And I think this is the phone call where the FBI, you know, they recorded the phone call at Jeff's house. And they had the members watch Nexium and say, I want you to do a dissertation. He said this to all the members of the cult as to how we're not a cult. And one or two of them said, holy shit, after he had him watch The Vow and Seduced. And show me, you know, I want you to do a paragraph or whatever or two on why we're not a cult. And a couple of them watched that and said, holy shit, thanks for setting us free, Jeff and Shaleia. I didn't know we were in a cult. Nexium is exactly like what we're involved in here. And they took the fuck up. Isn't that crazy, though, how he gave them the very tools to like show how to get them out? That's how crazy he is.
If there's one thing that you can draw humor from on all of this, is that, you know, at some point, Jeff's going to sit there and think to himself, where did I go wrong?
No,
And
he's going to think to himself, what if somebody's let me down, you know?
Yeah.
He should do the mirror exercise on himself when he's in prison and going, it's not me it's not others that put me in prison. How did I put myself in prison? He'll never do it, though. That's the thing. He has his followers do that. But did anybody try to throw back the mirror exercise on Jeff when he got a little snarly towards people? You know,
they were probably excommunicated shortly thereafter.
Absolutely.